Welcome to 15-minute battles, where we demolish history's biggest conflicts in just 15 minutes. We dive deep into the world's most pivotal military clashes, from the ancient battlefields of Marathon to the complex strategies of modern warfare. The leaders, who were the legendary generals and forgotten heroes commanding the troops, and finally, the outcomes. If you love history, military strategy, and learning something new quickly, you are in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss another historic clash.
Ever been in a situation where the odds are so stacked against you, it feels like a bad joke? Well, today we're talking about a man who faced odds of 2-1 and not only survived, but came out on top, changing the course of Western history forever. This is the story of Julius Caesar and the day he gambled everything at the Battle of Pharsalus. Picture this. It's 48 BCE. Caesar has just suffered a humiliating defeat at Derecu. He's cornered, his army is starving, and his legendary luck seems to have finally run out. He retreats into the plains of Thessaly in central Greece, desperate to find food for his men and a way out of this mess. Hot on his heels is his great rival, Pompey the Great. Pompey has a much larger army and a winning strategy. Just wait. Starve Caesar out. Simple, effective, and cautious. But Pompey wasn't calling all the shots. His camp was buzzing with arrogant Roman senators, men who saw themselves as Pompey's equals, not his subordinates. They were already squabbling over who would get Caesar's prestigious position of Pontifex Maximus back in Rome, even dividing up his properties before the final battle was even fought. They sneered at Pompey's caution, calling him a coward, and Agamemnon, king of kings, who just wanted to prolong his command. They were armchair generals, itching for glory. Under immense pressure, Pompey abandoned his winning strategy and agreed to face Caesar on an open plain near a town called Pharsalus. He was about to give Caesar the one thing he desperately wanted, a battle. Let's talk about the numbers, because they are truly staggering. Pompey commanded a massive force of around 45,000 infantry and a cavalry of 7,000 strong. This cavalry was considered the flower of Rome, the sons of the wealthiest and most powerful families, decked out in the finest armor. Across the field, Caesar stood with just 22,000 infantry and a paltry 1,000 cavalry, less than half the infantry and 1/7 of the horsemen. On paper, this should have been a slaughter. Pompey's battle plan was straightforward and deadly. His superior infantry would hold Caesar's veterans in the center. Meanwhile, his 7,000 cavalry, led by a man named Labienus, would smash into Caesar's tiny cavalry force on the right flank. Labienus was a brilliant commander who had been Caesar's right-hand man for years in Gaul. He knew Caesar's tactics inside and out. Once Caesar's cavalry was broken, Labienus would swing his horsemen around and hit Caesar's legions from the side and rear. It was a classic hammer and anvil tactic. Game over. Victory for the Republic. Or so they thought. But Caesar was a master of reading his opponents. He knew Pompey, and he knew the arrogant young aristocrats leading the cavalry. He told them to ignore their training. Don't throw your heavy javelins, the pila, from a distance. Instead, hold on to them. Use them like spears. And when the enemy cavalry charges, don't aim for the horses. Aim for the faces of the riders. Caesar knew these young, vain noblemen would be more terrified of a disfiguring scar than of death itself. He was betting the entire battle on a psychological trick. He was about to turn their pride into their biggest weakness. The battle began. The horns blared, and the two lines of veteran Roman infantry marched toward each other. In a chilling display of discipline, both sides held their fire until the last possible second, then clashed with a terrifying silence, broken only by the sickening thud of shield on shield and the grunt of men fighting for their lives. This was a meat grinder, veteran against veteran, a grim contest of endurance. Then came the thunder. As planned, Labienus led Pompey's 7,000 cavalry in a massive earth-shaking charge. They slammed into Caesar's 1,000 horsemen, who, on Caesar's orders, immediately began to fall back, fighting a retreat. Seeing them give ground, the Pompeian cavalry surged forward, smelling blood. They lost their tight formation, becoming a disorganized mob, each rider eager to be the first to break the enemy. They were falling right into Caesar's trap. Suddenly, as if appearing from nowhere, out of the dust and chaos, Caesar's hidden fourth line emerged. The Pompeian cavalry, overconfident and disordered, crashed straight into a wall of upturned spears. The legionaries, screaming, thrust their javelins upwards, aiming for the eyes and faces of the shocked aristocrats. The effect was instantaneous and horrific. These flowers of Rome, who expected a glorious victory, were met with cold steel aimed at their pretty faces. Panic ripped through their ranks. They screamed, wheeled their horses around, and fled the field in a complete and utter rout, not even stopping to regroup. Labienus had lost complete control. The decisive arm of Pompey's army had just evaporated. Now Caesar's brilliance truly shone. The 3,000 men of his fourth line didn't stop to celebrate. With Pompey's entire cavalry wing gone, the left flank of his infantry was completely exposed and vulnerable. Caesar's secret line wheeled around and smashed right into the side of the Pompeian legions. At that very same moment, Caesar gave the signal he had been waiting for. He committed his fresh, rested third line of reserves. The Pompeian infantry, already exhausted from the brutal fight in the center, were suddenly hit by a devastating double blow. A flank attack from one side and a charge of fresh, screaming veterans from the front. The line buckled, then shattered. The will to fight drained away. Seeing his cavalry gone and his legions collapsing, Pompey the Great seemed to break as well. Witnesses say he slowly rode back to his camp, as if in a daze. He walked into his command tent, took off his general's cloak and insignia, and simply sat there, waiting for the end. The dream of the Republic was crumbling around him, and the man who was meant to be its savior had been utterly outgeneraled. As the rout turned into a massacre, Caesar rode among his victorious troops, but he wasn't shouting for more blood. Instead, he was yelling a command that would become legendary. Pars civibus, spare the citizens. He knew that to rule Rome, he couldn't just win the war. He had to win the peace. He needed to show mercy, to turn enemies into allies. While thousands of Pompey's non-Roman allied troops were cut down, most of the Roman legionaries on Pompeius' side were allowed to surrender and were incorporated into Caesar's own army. Pompey himself fled, eventually making his way to Egypt, hoping to find refuge. But there, a tragic and pathetic fate awaited him. The advisors to the young King Ptolemy XIII, hoping to curry favor with the victorious Caesar, had Pompey murdered the moment he stepped ashore. When Caesar arrived and was presented with Pompey's severed head, he famously wept for his former son-in-law, for his rival, and perhaps for the death of the Republic they had both served. The Battle of Pharsalus was the death knell of the Roman Republic. It was the moment that proved one man as tactical genius and the loyalty of his veteran army could overcome any odds. Although the civil war would drag on for a few more years, with campaigns in Africa and Spain, the outcome was no longer in doubt. After Pharsalus, Caesar was the undisputed master of the Roman world. The age of the Senate was over. The age of the dictator, and soon the emperor, had truly begun. Thanks so much for watching. If you're fascinated by the incredible tactics and gambles of history's greatest commanders, then please come back for more.
And that wraps up today's 15-minute battle. If you want to master more moments of military history in less time, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you for the next 15-minute battle.